Still Crazy After All These Beers is brought to you by our friends at Michelob, crafting a better beer. And Porta Pong, the world's #1 best-selling inflatable beer pong table at portapong.com.
Hi, I'm Steph.
And I'm Jen. And I'm Alexa.
And we're here at the Philadelphia Craft Beer Fest, and we are still crazy after all these beers! Woo! Welcome to this week's episode of Still Crazy After All These Beers. I'm Guy Zampa, filling in for Gary Monterosa, and I'm here with another Gary from Blue Point Brewery, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his history. And Gary, how did Blue Point Brewery come about?
Blue Point Brewing Company started about 11 years ago. Two guys, Mark Burford, who's our brewmaster, and Pete Cotter, who's our president. Big beer enthusiasts. They were home brewers and all. They kind of got a little fed up with paying prices for beer, and they decided to open their own brewery. So they got some capital together, put together a brewery in Patchogue, Long Island, and made some great beer, and that's that.
Now, as most of the craft industry started, were they home brewers prior to being brewers?
Mark was a home brewer and had brewed in some local brew pubs and breweries. Pete was actually a salesman, and I think he's actually the one individual that has been to more towns in the United States than anyone on the planet. But they were beer enthusiasts and friends, and they met at a bar a couple of blocks down from our brewery, and they made some beer, had a van and a dog, and they brewed it and made it. There you go.
Now, you were telling me prior to our interview here, you have a very unusual past for a beer sales rep or all-around good guy. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, I've been a beer fan since I was a little guy. But actually, I was educated. I'm actually a credentialed alcohol and substance abuse counselor.
Let's just stop there for a second. That is amazingly unusual for a substance abuse counselor to become a...
I've just always been interested in beer, but I was raised by a school psychologist, so psychology and social work, and that was always my route. And I'm actually I have a degree in social work from the #1 school of social work on the planet. And I was a college professor and a therapist for 8 years. And when I hit the early midlife crisis, instead of getting fat and buying a Corvette, I started begging Blue Point for a job. And after about a year of begging, they hired me to work in the brew house and doing various jobs. They then dropped me off in New Jersey, tousled my hair, patted me on the back, and said, hey, go sell some beer. And I was a salesman.
And we got to applaud you for that, because not many people that are college professors will leave the field to do something they love. And that is awesome.
Yeah, beer has always been my passion. And we happen to make phenomenal beer, as does a lot of the breweries here today at the Philly Craft Beer Festival and all over the country. And we just see the craft beer explosion. And I'm just really happy to be a part of it. And it's just a lot of fun, and you know.
So what are some of the beers we tried today? The first one I have right here is your newest beer, you said?
Oh, yeah. The newest beer that we have is the Rastafari, which actually this is the first year that we made it and won a gold medal at the Great American Beer Festival. A silver medal, my bad. Silver medal at the Great American Beer Festival. It's a 7.5% rye pale ale. So there's going to be some rye bread flavors that play really well with the spiciness of the hops. And it's fantastic.
Let's try that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm drinking something else, but...
it's very good, very mellow, but you can definitely tell it's a higher, like you said.
Yeah,
like
absolutely. It's borderline big beer, but it's still sessionable. People could have a few of these in a night, as opposed to just having one pairing with a beer.
As long as you're not drinking Miller Lite usually, right? They can handle a 7.5.
Well, I'm not going to badmouth anybody, but it's a really good beer.
Right, any light beer, we should say.
There you go. There you go.
Now, what else are you pouring here today?
Well, I'm actually drinking our Optical Illusion, which is a 6.8% alcohol by volume American-style IPA. We hop this beer 7 times, and you get a lot of citrus notes out of the hops. So there's a lot of grapefruit going on, if you want to give that a little whirl there.
What particular hops are in this one?
Amarillo, Cascade, because we dry hop it, and we throw some through the hop back. And
wow. It
actually happens to be one of my more preferred beers that we actually do.
Now, what would be the IBUs on something like that? Because you can tell it definitely has a hop note, but not an overpowering finish.
It's probably about 70 IBUs or so, because there's enough of a malt profile in there that nothing is really overpowering anything. Everything we do is very balanced. And all the beers that we do, if you're going to pair with food, they're very versatile beers as well. So I'm really excited to do beer dinners and everything that they just work in a lot of situations.
And you guys definitely have enough of a variation in your line to have a nice beer dinner that you can pair courses. And we'll just touch on the other two that you're pouring here today. You have the blueberry ale.
The blueberry ale, yeah, absolutely. 132 pounds of fresh blueberries per 1,000 gallons of beer. None of that extract. It is actually a brilliant, brilliant beer. Whether you're starting with a salad or a fish dish or something, depending on that, or you're finishing up a meal, it just works well with a lot.
And I had that earlier. It's very light. It's definitely a nice summer beer. And definitely you could see as a pairing, like you said, with something light, fresh in taste. Now the last thing you're pouring here is your flagship, which
the flagship.
I'll let you talk about.
It's our toasted lager over here. It is our flagship. It is our bestseller. And actually, we were open for 8 years, and it was voted the best amber lager in the world. Gold medal at the World Beer Cup. It's something we're very, very proud of. When 109 international brewers tell us that our amber lager is the best in the world.
And I'll just say that in the Philadelphia area, there's definitely some traditional lagers that have a very hardcore following, and you're definitely picking up some in the Philadelphia area with your toasted lager.
Yeah, we're gaining more and more of a following as we're distributed up and down the entire East Coast. Whether you like the lightest of lights or the darkest of darks, everybody tends to find a palate for the toasted lager. It's just a phenomenal amber lager. Fantastic, complex malt bill. Enough of a hop backbone, finishes with hints of caramel. It just doesn't really get better than the toasted lager, man.
And like I said, for you to have a good following here in Pennsylvania, that shows that it's an excellent beer. And you guys have a great beer line. We look forward. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, man.
And we look forward to catching up with you again. And hopefully next week Gary will be here because I should be back behind the camera. But for now, this is Guy Zampa signing off for Still Crazy After All These Beers. See you next week.